can I get your attention, please, for the next session? That's right, we're going to discuss attention. Our next panel of industry experts will delve into the latest methodologies for measuring attention and moving beyond traditional metrics to more nuanced indicators. So prepare to gain insights into how these advanced attention metrics can be leveraged to create more impactful and effective ad campaigns. And on that note, I would like to please welcome our moderator for the session, David Snocken, VP of Partnerships at Magnite. I'm sure you do not need it, but a final reminder to use the Q&A box for questions from the audience. Pete, appreciate your question on last session. We will collate all of these if we don't get time to answer them on the call today, and we will answer them within the follow-up. David, over to you to introduce your panelists.
Wayne, thank you so much. And what a delight to be part of the event today, actually, amongst such great industry expertise and discussion. I'm sure we're going to continue that trend to just round us out for the final panel on attention. I spent a lot of time with a whole mixture of different partners across the industry. So this is a subject that's pretty close to my heart. And as Lindsay said at the author of this, there's definitely some discussion points to be had around attention so that we can get a little bit closer to where it fits, how it works, where the best value and usage of those kind of metrics are. But let's get it stuck into some intros. Let's get some knowledge of our delightful and our wonderful panelists across to you. And then we'll get into the Q&A and the discussion part of this. Let's go with the order that's on the screen here. So we'll kick it off with Sam first. Or maybe we'll do it in reverse order and we'll kick off with Amber first.
Hi, thanks, David. Hi, so I'm Amber Mumford. I'm an enterprise sales director at DoubleVerify, who are a leading verification company, and we do have solutions in place around attention measurement and optimization. So I like to think I know a little bit about what I'm talking about here.
Awesome, thanks. Lucy.
Hi, my name's Lucy. I'm a programmatic business director at Zenith, and a huge part of my role is advising clients on our programmatic strategy across channels, partners we're using, and long-term goals. So I've had lots of chats about attention.
And let's see if Sam's with us or still working his way through the process. No, I'm sure Sam will jump in and join us soon. 30 minutes is going to run by in a real flash here, actually. So we'll let Sam get in and join us, and then we'll give him. Oh, look at that, perfectly timed, Sam.
Yeah, I'm sorry, my headphones aren't working properly, so I had to join again.
No worries. Quick intro, and then we'll get stuck into the discussion.
Cool. Yeah, I'm Sam. I work at GroupM Nexus Media Solutions. I'm passionate about advertising, and I always have been. And I think advertising can add a lot of value to people's lives if you do it properly. And attention is obviously the main reason advertising exists in the first place. So bring attention to a brand or bring attention to a product and make sure that's fit for purpose for the user, rather than focusing on our solutions. We want to focus on the problems that consumers have and then provide solutions for their problems, right?
That's a cracking vision out there to start with, Sam, right? So there's a bit more detail that sits underneath that though. So I think one of the things that's quite clear here is we probably should start with a bit of baselining actually around definitions, because there's a lot of different approaches. There's a lot of different methodologies out there. So would really just value some of your kind of opinions and thoughts about what are the key components or indicators that really should be part of attention metrics. Let's roll that one across to Amber first, actually, for review.
Yeah, so obviously there's not like a set definition for attention that exists within the industry. I think when I'm talking about it, or when DV are talking about it, we explain that it's an additional data source that serves primarily as like a proxy for an advertiser's wider campaign KPI. I think beyond that, it's a metric that helps us measure and identify like the overall relevance and resonance of an ad experience with users, a lot more beyond what we've been able to do with previous metrics anyways. At DV, we do this by using a range of signals for attention, using a collection of what we call engagement and exposure data points, which allow us to understand things like the user's presence with the device, the prominence and exposure of the ad on the screen, and the actual interactions with the ad and ad unit itself. So they can take all of these signals and, as I mentioned, essentially use it as a data source to correlate back to their wider KPIs and hopefully drive outcomes.
Awesome. Thank you, Amber. Actually, Sam, you're very much like on the sharp end of using some of these methods. So would appreciate your thoughts actually on really what should those core elements be.
Yeah, sure. So I just want to start with the first ad served by AT&T in 1994, which was focused on just serving the ad. And then viewability came around about 20 years later. And then 8 years on, we're on attention. But viewability has evolved into attention and a foundation for attention. Every single channel has a different focus. So if I'm listening to Spotify, my attention is basically a listen through rate, right? How much I listen through in the ad. If I'm watching the TV, it'll be how much I'm focused on the TV and listening to it. If I'm on my phone on the tube, I might not be able to hear it at the same time whilst I've got the Wi-Fi connected to O2. So it depends. But I think personally, viewability is a precursor. I think we need to focus on engagement metrics and viewability. But we use different vendors. So we have vendors giving us their eye tracking data. We use our human-based data in real-time bidding. So we basically use human-based information to bid on probabilistic way of figuring out which inventory to serve on and which users to bid on. So in terms of metrics, I'd say viewability is key. I would say sound is on being key for things like audibility for certain channels, like audio and video.
Yeah, really helpful, Sam. Actually, there's clearly nuances in this for sure. Lucy, what's your thoughts on this?
In terms of definitions for attention.
Yeah, what are the sort of core metrics really that should be part of attention?
Yeah, I agree. It's hard, and it hints on what Sam was saying there around every channel is different, right? Like, I see attention broadly as a collection of data points that we can gather to make a decision based on whether someone's attention is being held by that ad, whether it's resonating with them, whether they're likely to take away that message. And there's loads of metrics that come into that, and they're different across channels, things like scroll speed or time on screen, or if somebody has selected to look at subtitles, moved their phone to see the video full screen. But there's a real challenge, I think, with when we're looking at attention across channels. Those specific data points or those actions that a user can take are different. If someone's listening to a programmatic audio ad versus looking at something on a CTV screen or their phone, it's all very different. I'm seeing it as attention as a collection of data points that help us look at how likely someone is to have taken out that message.
Yeah, I think that sort of collection of signals approach makes an awful lot of sense because there are a bunch of different channels here. I would say it's fair to say attention's found a place in the classical world of display, for example. Sam, you've already alluded to the audio space, and of course I'm going to be fascinated by thoughts in the world of CTV. Let me throw that one across to you, Amber, actually, just if you've got a little bit of extra color to add, let's say, about how you feel like attention might sit in a CTV type of environment.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting one because the ways in which CTV platforms command attention from users is so different to what you'd see in in-web environments. And also the signals that are available as well, like the engagement signals that are so prominent across those web environments and help us identify things like attention aren't as readily available across CTV, just due to the ways in which people consume that type of content. So I think off the back of that, what we might see on what's happening at DV anyways is a collaboration between methodologies who provide a bit of an augmented data collection to give to advertisers. So DV actually recently rolled out CTV attention monitoring earlier this year, and we're doing it in partnership with a company called T-Vision, where we're able to combine DV's scalable attention data collection, where we give those impression level monitoring based on all of those 50-odd data points that we're collecting, in collaboration with T-Vision's panel-led viewer presence and eyes on screen ad attention signals. And it's allowing us to augment all of those sets of data signals. As Lucy was saying earlier, there's a plethora of signals that we can utilize, tapping into all of those types of methodologies to provide advertisers with the most extensive data resources, essentially, to help monitor attention across CTV.
And that's
it's interesting. You go for it, Lucy.
Just around the CTV stuff, with those behaviors being different across platforms, it's a challenge for us to find a standardized view. And I'm really happy to hear about that T-Vision stuff, because I think for a long time we've been reliant necessarily on eye tracking. That's been the initial launch of this kind of methodology or measurement. That gives us a really binary view of attention, of you've got attentive attention or inattentive attention. But I don't think it's binary. I think there are middle grounds of all of that across lots of different channels. So I'd like that in-depth, like multiple 50 plus data points piece, because that would ultimately help us make a better decision rather than saying it's attentive or an inattentive channel.
Yeah, it's not a binary measurement really, is it, in many ways? Sam, what's your view on this? I feel like you've probably got some extra flavor to add.
Yeah, so I think one thing that we use a lot in our team in marketing science and Nexus Media Solutions is time of day. And I think depending on the time of day, you have order effects in advertising or just in general. At the start of the day, you have a high attention bank. At the end of the day, your attention bank's low. So if you're watching TV at the end of the day, your attention bank, your ability to store that information and to pay attention to it is probably lower. So time of day is key. I think connected TV is automatically a cross-channel device or cross-device way of viewing media, because you're on your phone and you might be streaming between the devices. You might be on your tablet or phone whilst watching TV. So it can be a lot more passive. So passive attention is very key, because when I'm on the mobile phone, I'm looking at my phone directly. I'm not really doing other stuff if I'm out and about. But if I'm watching a TV advert on a connected TV, I might go onto my phone during that time and then go back to the TV. But there's no way of gauging that. Whereas with a video on my phone, if I scroll down, it will automatically cut it out. It's a little bit different, and you have above the fold and below the fold stuff on different devices. But on a TV, it's on the screen or it's not on the screen.
Yeah, it's a complicated old space in many ways, isn't it? And if actually you're changing your attention from the TV screen to your mobile device in order to execute and go and search for the advert that you've just seen or follow up on a QR code, then that's still really good attention to that particular opportunity. So I think we've still got some sort of room to grow and evolve around this attention space in the market for sure. I think it'd be fascinating to dig into beyond just like the definitions and how we think this thing fits together. Just your kind of thoughts and opinions around, like, how does it actually impact? How does it make a difference to the way that you treat campaigns or how campaigns are measured and optimized? I think I'm going to come back to you first on this one, Sam, actually, just to see what your thoughts are.
Yeah, we see as a common denominator, I'd say, in Nexus. So it's the only metric which you can say you want to apply to all channels to optimize a campaign. So what we do at the moment is we use vendors like Adelaide, XYZ, Lumen to optimize campaigns using eye tracking data. And we build bid modifiers across Xandr and DB360, or we make custom bidding scripts. And those scripts usually have devices, domains, time of day in there with different scores. And we use machine learning. We use random forest models, for example, or other similar sort of statistical analyses to give these scores. Or we use data directly from the attention vendor, which is called, let's say, norms data with benchmark data to optimize towards the different formats or different channels or different time of day. So we can have a static approach with a static data set, which would be given by domains and markets, or we have a dynamic data set, which we use tagging on real life campaigns, feeding that data back in based on looking at their database versus live data, and then upping or reducing the bid aggressiveness for certain domains or devices or times of day. And it's works really successfully for a lot of clients. And we've seen an impact of a ratio of 1 to 2 between attention and brand lift. And attention is not an outcome, it's for an outcome. So it can drive brand lift, it can drive performance, it can drive a higher amount of ad recall for a brand. And that's the start of the performance journey is ad recall and brand memory, you know?
That's a complicated old ecosystem you got running there, Sam. That's really paying attention to attention. I'm sorry, I couldn't miss that one as an opportunity. Lucy, what does that look like in your world?
So how do we use attention?
Yeah, focusing. Yeah, just.
Yeah, I think so. At Zenith, our focus for clients is always on driving ROI for our businesses, right? And I think we can't lose sight of that and get distracted by optimizing towards attention on its own as a metric. It has to be looked at in conjunction with wider business goals or wider ambitions of the campaign. What it does offer us is an ability to optimize in-flight investment between channels. If we're seeing particular trends in, for example, YouTube is doing particularly well for us from an ATPM perspective, we can make that decision in flight. But I think also there's a longer term understanding that we need to have on what's the impact of attention for this campaign. I would love to be able to say to clients, if we correlate, similar to what Sam said there around, we correlate and can collaborate with wider measurement pieces of work, things like brand lifts or conversion lift studies. I would love to be able to tell a client, you need to optimize towards this perfect amount of attention to see maximum incremental brand lift, ad recall, message takeout, conversion lift. So I think there's two prongs to it. There's the in-flight, like short-term optimizations we can make between channels, between audiences, across creatives, but also there's the longer-term view of looking at conversion lift and brand lifts, and using that insight for time planning as well.
Yeah, fascinating. So blending the kind of use of attention from both a kind of targeting approach to a measurement approach and optimization in between as well, actually. So it doesn't sit necessarily neatly in one camp. It's not just a measurement capability. Fascinating. Amber, is anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I think I agree with that completely from like an activation and optimization standpoint. It's a really useful tool, especially if you're correlating it back to your wider campaign KPIs. But one thing that I also think it's quite good for in the granularity of insights that you get from attention goes way beyond what we see in other digital metrics like viewability, for example, and that it's very ad specific and it's all around understanding the resonance between the ad and the user viewing that ad. And so I think even like a few steps or stages before activation and optimization, it can be used as a tool for things like planning and strategy. Yep. That it's quite good at identifying certain environments, contexts, even the creatives that are working well to drive resonance and relevance for your brand. At DV, we've been working with a number of advertisers who use attention as like an always on solution rather than just like sporadically across a number of campaigns, but like literally always on across everything that they're measuring. And it gives them this like wealth of attention data, and they're able to see it broken down by each dimension and then use it to then feed into their internal planning and strategy tools as well. So I think beyond optimization, activation, and measurement, it's also a really useful tool for actual campaign planning and strategy.
Yeah, that's a fascinating take, actually. Like it genuinely applies across all parts of the life cycle here, actually. And I think to get us down into the sort of the real practical world of things, because theory and ideas are great, but we've all kind of had some experience of using the metrics, using the kind of tools and capabilities that are available. Would love to just highlight and call out some real world examples, actually, of where attention metrics have been used, the kind of value they've added, how they've actually helped and supported a campaign. And Lucy, would love to hear from you first on this one, actually.
Yeah, I think at the minute, like testing itself is quite nascent, but there's a huge amount of opportunity with integrating with those kind of brand and conversion lift studies I mentioned. Our team, our tech and intelligence team, internally have a tool called Decisioning Science Framework. And that's an intention of mine to start to bring kind of attention optimization metrics into campaigns. And I think at the minute we've done a few tests on some of our clients. What I've yet to see, and this is why I'm nervous of getting tunnel vision on this specifically, is I'm yet to see a campaign that optimizes purely to attention drive better ROI for a client. Like I think it does a different job. So I think we need to find a middle ground between that where we can integrate it within our optimization and our campaign strategy, but not get tunnel vision on attention is the only thing we want to drive, because we're at risk then of over optimizing towards it, arguably like we have with kind of cost per click or viewability over the years. I think it's part of the problem, the sole intention.
Yeah, I think that's one of the messages that's coming out loud and clear here, isn't it, Lucy? Really, it's not necessarily the focus in itself, but a really strong value add to a whole number of different parts of that chain. Sam, what's your experience been of using and testing and working with some of these metrics? If we can get it down to a real kind of client case study with some hard numbers, that would be awesome.
Yeah, so we've got a lot of geniuses in our team. I'm not going to be shy about that. And they've done some really good work on this stuff. So I can help you out, Lucy, by the way. So we've got IAB Mix Awards winners. So we've had an automotive client in Finland, and we've got an extremely good relationship with them. We won the IAB Mix Awards last year, and we also won a bronze in that one. And then we won Performance Campaign Category Award, bronze again, with the Best of Swiss Programmatic Awards. And what we've seen is different markets always have different outcomes, but it's always working really well for our team anyway. So we've got an automotive client, which proves that we can drive performance. We halve the CPA for an open exchange campaign is under. We increase conversion rates by 57%, and that's for expensive cars in test drives. So it's not always easy to get people to book a test drive for expensive cars like a high-end range automotive vehicle. FMCG company, we've done a display campaign, increased 20% in retention. 24% decrease in cost. And cost per attention is important because some clients are really, let's say they're really fixed on a CPM or really fixed on how they buy media. So you don't want to optimize for maximum attention if it inhibits the cost. And if that cost is going to be encroached by the maximization of attention, massive companies who already have high attention and high brand equity in the market don't need to have a high attention focus. They need just little increments. It's like brushing your teeth every day versus going to a dentist. A big attention campaign is like seeing the dentist, but brushing your teeth every day with little bits, little hygiene factors are what makes a difference for a big brand. A broadband provider, 14% increase in brand recall from an 8% increase in attention. So a good ratio of 1 to 2. And I think brand multipliers or business outcome multipliers with attention as a proxy or a seed for that outcome is an important way of planning. You can plan with SSPs, with having a private marketplace. You can change a media plan with certain structures or devices or budgets. But you can also have an always on campaign and just make these fine-tune changes. But the key thing I'd say is have an A/B test on. Split the cookie pools, try different tests, and validate using brand lift or using incrementality. And the key thing about attention is it's cookieless because the data that we use is from people watching a screen. Got no ad fraud. There's no bots. There aren't any bots watching the screen with the eye goggles on. So the input data is fraudless. And that's one of the only data sources you can say is 100% guaranteed flawless in the probabilistic model.
Yeah, I think it's fascinating. I think it's clear that in the earlier stages, there are some good examples, and Sam, really appreciate you getting that down to some really strong performance numbers actually with those campaigns. It'll be fascinating to see how this evolves and works into some of those more, let's say, mainstream, middle stream clients where incrementality in attention is something that's really important for them and maybe not quite so easy to achieve. So it'd be fascinating to see how that evolves. Amber, what's your take on this at an actual client usage level?
Yeah, so we've done a lot of work to understand the role that attention plays in correlating with advertisers' outcomes. Naturally, we're selling an attention solution. We need to prove the success of it, right? And I think the lesson that we've learned from it is that it's definitely not a one-size-fits-all approach for every advertiser. And this is just going back to like how DV measures for attention and provides reporting on attention, and that we bucket our data signals into 2 groups, exposure and engagement. Exposure is looking at all of those signals that kind of tell us how exposed the ad was on the screen. So it will be things like viewable time, completion rates, audible rates, and then also things like the ad share of voice on the screen in relation to the device that it's been shown on. And then engagement is more around how engaged users were with the device and with the ad itself. So device level engagement, be it like scroll velocity, like how fast they're scrolling, if they're stopping at any point. And then actual ad interactions. So are they engaging with the ad, playing it, pausing it, turning the volume up? So that's the breakdown of how DV monitors it. And we found from working with advertisers and running case studies on this, and we did one with a big global travel brand where their end KPI was to drive awareness and brand favorability. And we found out that it wasn't like a case of just optimizing to all of the attention signals available that was going to drive the best outcome. It was honing down on those signals that actually drove awareness and favorability. And in this case, it was more so those exposure signals. And I think that's quite natural in that if you're running an awareness campaign, the ad creative isn't going to have any kind of call to action on it. It's just an awareness piece. So things like the ad interactions are going to drop off the back of that, especially when compared to a performance campaign. And then on the flip side of it, we worked with a telecoms company who had quite the opposite campaign, lower funnel, wanted to drive on-site sales conversions. And they found that it was those engagement data signals and optimizing towards those specifically that found an increase in their performance. I think they saw like a 2.5 times sales lift compared to the control. So yeah, so we found that it's very much not a case of one size fits all. It's about running that measurement piece, mapping it back to your wider KPIs, and optimizing based off of those signals that serve your brand KPIs as opposed to just attention as a concept.
And it's pretty interesting, especially when you think about you have to do that job right across verticals, across campaign markets. Like that's when we're advising on partners for clients, like that's the kind of like flexibility we need. It's not a one size fits all for every brand that we work with.
There's so much in this topic. I think Sam, I'm going to give it to you just for a sort of final thought on this particular question.
Yeah, so I think we talked about branded performance, but what's in the middle is consideration, right? And in our team, we have something called search lift studies. So we use search data online and we look at trends of keywords by time of day, and we see how keyword demand has changed because of the campaign, or using it as an inference just as an analytical factor. But I think if we look at search lift, that's in between brand lift and performance. So that indicates that someone's directly searching for the brands after paying attention to it, or specific keywords for a specific product. If you've got a new product launch and you do an attention campaign, those searches would never have happened before that time, right? So after that time, you can then see the increases in those keyword searches. And that'll give you a big indicator of where you're sitting in the funnel for consideration, for example, and purchase intent and moving on to sales.
I think we can safely conclude here that like attention is not just a single thing, but it's a very broadly applicable piece of capability, and that we should pick and use it at the right points in time as well, though it's not a one size fits all type of measurement or metric. I think this has been a fascinating discussion, actually, and there's so much more that we could dig into. There's probably another whole half an hour on this subject, but in order to not get told off too badly by Wayne and team, we'll wrap it here. And I'll say just a huge thank you, actually, to the brain trust on the panel here of Lucy, Amber, and Sam. I've thoroughly enjoyed being part of this panel and have learned more than I expected going in. Who knew that attention and dentistry could be a thing?
Thanks to you, Rob,
Thanks, David.
and the panelists.
Second person that thinks I'm going to tell everyone off. Thank you, David. Thank you all.